Lawyers of Reddit, what's the stupidest case you've been asked to take on? And did you? My father is a patent attorney. And when I was around 14 he told me about a guy who wanted to patent the iPhone 3 because aliens had given him the design for it. My father told him that if the aliens originally designed then they were the ones that had to patent it, not him. I'm a prosecutor, so I don't get hired to represent anyone. I work for the government, but I do have discretion over how the prosecution progresses, i.e., deciding to proceed, deciding what to offer in the event of a plea bargain, deciding to withdraw the charges, etc. I had a case a few months ago where a man was charged with shoplifting. Turned out he was 70 years old, had absolutely no criminal record, and had shoplifted a sandwich which he ate politely in the store. He honestly thought he had paid for it. I was so angry that he was ever charged in the first place. When I saw him in court, he was absolutely terrified. I withdrew the charges and wished him well. I have no idea how it progressed that far. I had a client come in saying that he needed to sue Stu for robbing all his checks. When I asked him if Stu had a last name, he said no. When I asked him if he knew any Stu, he said no. When I asked him what proof he had that Stu was robbing him, he showed me all of his pay stubs. There were clear monthly deductions by Stu. As soon as I saw it, I knew. I asked, do you have children? He said yes. I then told him your Stu is the SCU, the support collection unit. They take money out of your check to pay for your child. He left the office insisting that we needed to find Stu. I did insurance defense for a long time, including insurance fraud investigations for insurance companies. You wouldn't believe how many people take a video inventory of their house only to have it mysteriously burn down the next day. You really can't fix stupid. So, how long prior to the fire should one video the inventory of one's home? Asking for a friend who just got a new video camera and likes to smoke in bed. Woman wanted me to sue McDonald's because their employees beat up her son, who was trying to rob the place. When I was in law school I did the criminal defense clinic where we help a public defender. I say help because they just give you small cases to do by yourself. I had a guy accused of shoplifting a yellow FUBU shirt. Guess what he wore to the trial? GD yellow FUBU shirt. I asked the prosecutor to reoffer the plea deal. She did. And I convinced the guy to take community service and probation. If I remember correctly, our public defender system is tragically overworked and underfunded. Probably too late here, but I was a civil rights investigator. We had one guy complain that he was fired from his factory job because of his race. He was black. Owner of the factory said it was because the guy was smoking crack on his lunch break. Turns out he was smoking crack on his lunch break, but so were a few of his white co-workers and they were not fired. The owner agreed to pay the guy 6 months of back pay and give him a neutral reference. That sounds like a really ducky case. A lady in prison in my state tried to sue the State Department of Corrections for holding her against her will. Her lawyer wouldn't touch it. I had a teacher that worked for a major video game publisher, one of the top 10 ones. He told me that when people tried to sue them for small amounts due to some game being bad, they would just pay whatever the person wanted. It was cheaper than dealing with the country's terrible justice system. Except one day a guy sued them because a game was bad. He was a law student, self-representing, and tried to throw the book at the company. They decided to make an exception for this guy. They instead threw the book back at him. The lawsuit kept escalating until both sides wasted lots of time and money. Then as final stroke, they offered to settle in front of a judge. There in front of the judge, they put the price of the game on the table in cash, and told the guy to just take it and stop bothering them. The judge thought it was very fair, and told the guy that if he refused that settlement he would be fined. Guy was very unhappy. He expended like $5,000 in bureaucracy and airplane fares to get $60. I'm a lawyer, but this happened to a friend of mine. He got engaged, and apparently this P set off his ex-GF. The ex-GF sued him for custody of their 2 cats and $500,000 for something like the lost value of the cats because she claimed they were service animals. Hint: they were not at all service animals. Edit: wow, this got a lot of attention. So, to add to the story, one of the reasons my friend broke up with the ex-GF was because she had problems caring for the cats, ignoring them, forgetting to feed them while my friend was away, etc. So her coming back for the cats was clearly all about the fact that my friend was suddenly engaged to someone else. When they went to court, the judge immediately threw out the $500,000 demand because it was ridiculous. Unfortunately, they were awarded joint custody of the cats, which was this woman's way of staying in my friend's life. So he decided it was better if he just gave her the cats so he could be free of her. Guy I know worked for the DPP and told me about a case where a guy was up on car theft charges, which is like 5 years max, but he was very likely to get a suspended sentence probation as it was a first ever offense. The dumbest though thought it would be a good idea to go and intimidate the witness into not testifying. The witness called the cops and had CCTV footage of this. So he copped an extra charge with a 20-year max, and there was no way in hell he was getting a suspended sentence or probation on that one. Not a lawyer yet, but this happened while I was doing my 1L summer internship. I worked at a law library in a county lockup. There were plenty of interesting stories. One I already posted, but I figured I would share another. I also have no privilege issues. Dart. An inmate was charged with felon in possession and was coming down almost weekly to do research. He was basically looking for a way to get rid of a Walmart receipt and video, which indicated that he had purchased a box of bullets, giving officers cause to search and find the weapon. One day, he brings in one of the law books he purchased and had reviewed. He pointed to the section that discussed reasonable expectation of privacy and argued that the officers had not asked his permission to view the video and thus had invaded his privacy. I pointed to parts of the book that explained reasonable expectations. Still wasn't getting it. Finally, I asked him who owned the video. Walmart. Then wouldn't it be their decision? But it's me in the video. Whose video is it? Rinse and repeat for about 5 minutes before he finally huffed off. A lady once called asking us to sue her neighbors. They were using voodoo on her. Fortunately, she had psychic powers and thus knew what they were doing. I respectfully declined. Client wanted to sue because there were no strawberries in her fruit salad which she bought from a supermarket. Thankfully, a secretary was able to screen the call. She asked if the package said it had strawberries, and the response was, no, but I thought it would have. I don't know how these people manage to make it through life. Without going into too many details, had a guy that wanted to bring a class action against the company that made his underwear, because he was convinced his underwear was the reason he had a crooked DCK. He assured us that as soon as the jury saw his DCK, they'd side with him. No, we didn't take it. You would have taken it had you seen his DCK. I am a personal injury lawyer in the UK. I took a call from a potential client that had fallen down the stairs in her own home. She had tripped over her own cat. She told me that she wanted to sue her local authority as her home was owned by the council and she was not allowed to keep pets as part of her lease. She claimed that when the house was inspected she was not told to get rid of the cat. It was therefore the council's fault that she fell down the stairs. We didn't take the case on. Edit. God bless Fluffy for trying to clean up the gene pool, though. My mother said that at a law firm she used to work at many years ago they had received a call from a gentleman that wanted to file a lawsuit against Walt Disney. When asked why he was filing suit, he claimed that the Disney characters were coming out of the TV and stealing food from his refrigerator. They told him they'd take the case for an advance fee of $100,000 and never heard back from him. A guy found a rock in the middle of Melbourne CBD that he believed came from an underground volcano, therefore he discovered the volcano and he owned the volcano, and that the Melbourne City Council and indeed the Victorian government should pay him rent to live on top of his underground volcano. Fun fact. Sometimes you have no choice but to take it. I represented a guy who sold and leased cars. A woman worked for a company that let her drive a company van to work as part of a carpool effort. She'd keep the van at home and picked up fellow workers to go to work, then bring them back to their homes. One day going to work, she was stopped at a stoplight. Some guy didn't stop in time and bumped into the van. She got out to look. She and the other guy agreed no damage, so each went on her way. Later, a woman who as a passenger discovered she was injured, went to a lawyer. The lawyer sued the company, the driver, and every passenger in the van. The lawyer deposed each passenger, got the name of their auto insurance company, sent a demand letter for coverage. One of the passengers said, "I don't have a car, but my sister does." So they sued the sister. She said, "I don't have insurance because I lease the car, and they provide insurance." So the lawyer sued my client and sent a demand letter for insurance coverage. One prospective client wanted me to sue Burger King for no longer serving pancakes. Edit. Thank you for all your concern and tips. This was about 18 years ago. So I hope my client found a lawyer and you are all the beneficiaries of his foresight and proper sense of outrage. My dad is an in-house lawyer for a major American insurance company. He once spent an entire year trying to help deny insurance benefits for a painter who had stepped off his ladder onto a cat, fallen down the stairs and become paralyzed. The insurance company was arguing that a cat was a commonly expected occupational hazard for a painter and that he was negligent in not checking for cats before stepping down a whole year of his life over whether a cat is a known occupational hazard of house painting. Lawyer for 12 years. Client was charged with stealing a mobile toilet. After we won, he told me he still owns it. The ducker has the thing in his backyard because he was lazy as duck. His office was nearby. Forced him to deliver it back at night. Jesus. Still offended that he lied to me the whole time. Worked as IT for a family law firm. One day a lady comes in asking to have an attorney look at her divorce. She goes in with the lawyer and tells him she wants the divorce on the grounds that he was beating her. The attorney explained that he would be willing to do it, but advised that because the marriage was so short, just a few months, the easiest way to get a divorce and get away from her abuser was just to file a no-fault and get it over with. She starts yelling, throwing things at, and hitting him. Mind you, he is an older guy in his late 60s at this point, telling him that if she could get 4 other divorces from him then she could do it a 5th. She had married and divorced the same guy 4 times before this. The firm didn't take the case, but our sister firm, what we called the firm our firm split off of, did take on the guy's case. Turns out she had actually been the abusive one, basically holding him and their kids hostage with threats of telling the police he was molesting the kids and beating her. Guy was arrested for marijuana possession. Arresting officer never actually opened the tin foil bundle involved and checked that it was, in fact, not a burrito. Edit. Judge tossed the case. It was a misdemeanor. They don't go CSI and reach back to any collected evidence. Just roll their eyes and let everyone go home in situations like this. I mean, he's got a point. If the arresting officer genuinely never confirmed the substance, doesn't he have a point? I don't know how to better express my thoughts on this. When I was a summer associate, I worked on a case where a lady was suing her apartment complex because she walked out of her unit, slipped on duck poop, and injured herself. We repped the apt complex. The associate I was working for told me to slip as many bird-based puns into the motions pleadings as possible. I happily obliged. Are you telling me you actually practiced bird law? I run a consumer advocacy firm. I had a client come in and tell me that he bought a product. and the company refused to honor the warranty after the product broke. I asked for details, and he just started screaming in my face asking if I was going to take his money or not. I decided then that I wasn't taking him on as a client, but I wanted to know what was going on. I convinced him to tell me what happened. Turns out he bought a computer back in the 1990s. It had just recently died, but not because it was old and just stopped working. It was slow. So he picked it up and threw it out a 2-story window, and then he wanted to sue the manufacturer for breaking warranty. Edit. Well, there goes my inbox. If I got 20 years out of a computer, I'd be thanking the company, not suing it. When I was a federal prosecutor, an NCIS agent wanted me to prosecute federally someone living near the base for flying the U.S. flag the wrong way. I didn't. He was miffed. Damn it, Gibbs. I used to be a forensic social worker at a public defense organization, i.e., the people who provide lawyers for poor people when they get charged with crimes. You would not believe how many people believed that filing a police brutality lawsuit would result in their criminal charges going away. I mean, yes, police brutality is real, but you totally still committed a crime. I once represented a guy who was denied unemployment benefits after being fired from his job as a gizmopper at an adult video store for sexual harassment. I won. Edit. As explained down thread. I am almost entirely certain that my client was not the same guy who did the AMA a few months ago. Not a lawyer, but worked for a large national insurer who dealt with frivolous lawsuits frequently. Idiot is visiting friends in the country and gets drunk. Decides to wander across the street to the driveway of a farm. Ignores the multiple signs that say no trespassing and beware dog in both English and Spanish. Gets to the end of the driveway and there's a large dog chained to a post in the front yard barking its head off at him. Farmer comes out and tells the idiot to stay away from the dog. Idiot says something to the effect that he's good with dogs and tries to pet the dog. Dog takes off his finger and the idiot drops his beer bottle as he runs back the way he came. Owner tries to save the finger for reattachment, but the guy disappears. And so the farmer turns everything over to the police. Shortly thereafter we denied the idiot's claim and he lawyers up. Every time he lawyered up we'd send the documents to the lawyer. Lawyer would review and then drop the case. Happened multiple times. Idiot insisted we needed to pay for his emotional trauma. Kind of stupid. Guy arrested for taking photos of women at the pool. Wanted to sue on First Amendment grounds. Had an associate working on it. We never filed. Not really stupid but unbelievable. My friend at work. His girlfriend filed for divorce a few weeks ago. That's right. They aren't married and common law doesn't apply in WA state. They lived together for 5 years. She has a job. She isn't on the mortgage. And she left him a few months ago. There are no kids involved. They were never engaged. In the divorce she wants him to leave his house and she wants to move back in. She wants him to pay her $2,800 a month for some reason. I referred him to my divorce attorney and now that attorney is probably going to represent him. The chick is nuts. She has already tried to get a restraining order against him that was dismissed. A woman wanted to sue Walmart because they called the police, who then arrested her for disorderly conduct because she got into a physical altercation with an employee while doing her intake. I made a bullet-pointed list titled "Why We Shouldn't Take This Case." One of the points was that she had a history of suing her former attorneys. My batch T crazy boss forced me to take the case, and her retainer. Anyway, I wrote a memo explaining why she had no viable case, hoping she'd at least get some closure out of it. She didn't. And to no one's surprise, she sued me. I got it dismissed in about 5 minutes. But I still had to show up in small claims court over some pointless nonsense I didn't want to do in the first place. I defended a guy who was charged with theft for stealing some crowbars. The crowbars were found in the back of his pickup truck. At the trial, the victim of the theft and 2 of his buddies came in and testified that the crowbars, which had been taken into evidence and properly labeled for the trial, definitely belonged to the victim, and the buddies remembered seeing the victim use them. Then my client and his brother and his girlfriend testified that the crowbars were definitely my client's. They had all been using them together earlier in the day. That was pretty much it. The jury found my client not guilty, and one juror later wrote a letter to the judge saying that she was a high school civics teacher, and she believed jury duty was very important, and that the trial was the stupidest waste of time she had ever endured. I was working intake for my firm. One day a lady calls up and says I have a great case. She told me that a few months ago she had gone in for back surgery and things went terribly wrong. So at this point I'm thinking, okay, it's some kind of med mal. Then she tells me, while she was under, President Obama snuck in the room and put pig skin into her. The pig skin is still inside her and making her sick. I went to the partner and told him I have a great case. The bad news is that the defendant has civil immunity for at least the next 3 years. I was then told to go back to work. We did not take the case. My dad is a public defender and he had to defend this guy that stole a cop car from the jail parking lot. He claimed that it was a gift from God and was intended for him. Of course a police chase ensued and it went into the nearby highway, I-5 for those who know it. When he was finally pulled over about 5 minutes and 7 miles later, the guy got out of the car completely naked except for a pair of leather cowboy boots. If any of you care, my dad has had some other pretty legendary clients in his 25 years. I have a friend who's a lawyer. One time, he worked a custody battle for a man following his divorce. The primary argument was that his ex-wife was a massive bitch and would negatively impact the development of the children. The evidence consisted of statements from co-workers, Facebook arguments, and a list of HOA complaints she filed for frivolous things. He said it was a legitimate case, but everything about it was so petty and stupid. The guy won. This thread is making my day. Mom, I rule that you lose custody after irrefutable evidence of extreme bitchiness, as shown here by your complaints about the 2 weeds in your neighbor's yard. Guy in small claims court sues Western Beef supermarket chain in low-income areas in NYC for $9.950 because the cashier tried to charge him $10,000 for fish heads. He was purchasing $50 of fish heads at checkout. Judge asked why is he suing if he never lost anything, and the guy responded that last time he bought $50 of fish heads at Western Beef the same thing happened and he was given $5 off. The attorney for Western Beef, who was wearing an ankle bracelet for police monitoring, successfully argued that even if plaintiff was entitled to anything, it would be a $5 coupon. Bronx Small Claims Court had the craziest cases. Guy came in and had a company build a shed on some land. On the phone, he told me it was built incorrectly. He insisted on meeting. When he got to my office, I asked him what was wrong with the building. Was it structurally deficient, dangerous, etc.? None of the above. Turns out it was not perfectly square with the road in front of it. It was off by a foot. You could not tell by the naked eye, but he would always know and it bugged him. I told him that without any real damages, he had no case. He stormed out angrily.